In 1901, sponge divers working off the coast of Greece recovered a Roman-era shipwreck near the island of Antikythera. Among statues and other things was an unremarkable corroded lump of bronze. It sat basically ignored for decades, until X-rays revealed something no one expected. Interlocking gears, cut with precision, arranged in deliberate mechanical systems. Dating placed it around 100 BCE, nearly 1,000 years before anything like it should exist. Welcome to the evidence gap. The object now known as the Antikythera Mechanism was recovered from a shipwreck dating to the 1st century BCE. Now, the wreck carried luxury goods, bronze statues, glassware, ceramics, suggesting a cargo intended for elite Roman buyers. The mechanism itself was fragmented into dozens of pieces, heavily corroded by seawater. But once it was reconstructed, researchers identified at least 30 bronze gears, hand-cut, triangular gear teeth, plates covered in Greek inscriptions. It's interesting, the device was originally housed in a wooden case, roughly the size of a shoebox. But this wasn't, this wasn't decorative craftsmanship. It was a functional machine. So as imaging technology evolved, researchers began mapping the internal gear trains. What they found was startling. The gear ratios correspond to known astronomical cycles. The Metonic cycle governing lunar phases, the Saros cycle, used to predict eclipses, solar year calculations, accurate to remarkable precision. When the device was turned by hand, it modeled the movement of celestial bodies across time. This wasn't observation, this was prediction. One gear system uses differential gearing, right? Differential gearing. This is a technique that was long believed to be a modern invention. The best description, used carefully, is this. The Antikythera mechanism was an analog astronomical calculator. But nothing else like it appears in the archaeological record for another 800 to 1,000 years. Ancient Greece possessed advanced mathematics, astronomy, skilled metal workers even. None of that is in dispute. What's difficult to explain is that there's no surviving tradition of precision mechanical engineering from that period. No workshops, no manuals, no incremental devices leading up to this one. And there's no descendants of the technology afterward. So the question isn't whether ancient Greeks were capable. It's why a machine of this complexity appears fully formed and then vanishes without a trace. One detail to consider here that matters more than the gears themselves. It's the inscriptions on the mechanism. They're not poetic or symbolic, they're practical. They describe functions, cycles, and expected outcomes. So in effect, they read like user instructions. Now that suggests the device was meant to be operated, not admired, not displayed, but used, which implies something even more unsettling. The mechanism may not have been unique. What we may be seeing is not the peak of a tradition, but the only surviving fragment of one. The Antikythera Mechanism doesn't require lost civilizations, secret knowledge, or advanced science out of place. It requires something far more ordinary and far more fragile. And that's human ingenuity and a historical record that preserves unevenly. Now, in the first episode, we saw organized human behavior appear earlier than expected. Here, we see technical knowledge appear earlier than expected, and then, poof, disappear. Progress isn't always a straight line. Knowledge can emerge, fade, and reemerge centuries later. The gap here isn't about what ancient people couldn't do. It's about how much of what they did simply didn't survive. And I'll see you next time in the evidence gap.